We live in a culture that constantly celebrates the outcome, but rarely honors the process that led to it. People see the success, the spotlight, the applause. But they don't see the struggle, the nights of silence, the inner battles. We want the promise, but we want to bypass the pressure. We ask God for purpose, for calling, for breakthrough. But when the process starts to unfold and it doesn't look the way we imagined, we pull back. We doubt. We want to skip steps. But the truth is, the process is the only place where true purpose is formed. God will often answer prayers, not by giving you what you want, but by giving you what you need to become the person who can handle what you asked for. And that becoming, it happens in the process. It happens when things don't go your way. It happens when your plan gets disrupted, when your strength runs out, when you're forced to depend on Him. That's where God begins to shape you, not just for the moment, but for the mission. The version of you that can walk in purpose isn't created in convenience, it's forged in adversity. Too many people pray for greatness and then get surprised when the weight of the process shows up. But you can't have purpose without pressure. You can't have destiny without discipline. And you definitely can't walk in calling without walking through a season of crushing. God never skips the process. Why? Because what He's doing in you is more important than what He's doing for you. He's more concerned with your character than your comfort. He's more invested in your soul than your status. So the very thing you're trying to pray your way out of might be the thing God is using to prepare you. The closed doors, the delays, the disappointments, they're not setbacks, they're setups. Because the process will strip away what's fake, expose what's fragile, and build what's eternal. It humbles you. It teaches you how to trust. It teaches you how to hold on when nothing around you makes sense. It shows you that strength doesn't come from the absence of struggle, but from enduring it with grace. You don't develop wisdom from ease. You don't gain resilience by avoiding pain. You don't discover who you are when everything is working. You discover it when it's not. That's where purpose is formed. That's where clarity comes. Not in the applause, but in the quiet moments where you choose not to quit. When you decide to stay planted even though it hurts. When you lean into faith even though you can't see the outcome. That's the process. And it's not meant to destroy you. It's meant to reveal what's already inside of you. Strength, courage, identity, calling. But the only way to access that is through it. There's no shortcut, no backdoor, no bypass. Pain has a way of grabbing your attention like nothing else. It disrupts your rhythm, breaks your routine, and brings everything in your life to a halt. When it shows up, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock politely. It just walks in and takes a seat. And in those moments, when everything is shaking, most people want to escape. They want to numb it, outrun it, or pray it away. But what we fail to understand is that pain is often the starting line of transformation, not the finish line of defeat. God doesn't allow pain in your life to punish you. He allows it to prepare you. The moments that break you are the same moments that build you, if you let them. Most people are praying for strength, praying for growth, praying for elevation, and then when the pain shows up, they think God is silent or unfair. But what if that pain is the answer? What if that hardship is the very thing that will give you the depth, the compassion, and the perspective you've been missing? You don't grow on the mountaintop. You grow in the valley. When everything is stripped away, when the job is gone, the relationship ends, the health report comes back bad. When you don't know what to do and you're at your lowest, that's when something inside of you gets uncovered. Pain reveals what comfort covers. It shows you what you really believe. It shows you whether your faith was built on convenience or on conviction. Because when everything is good, it's easy to say you trust God. But when nothing's going right and the storm won't pass, that's when real trust is proven. The reason pain can be the beginning of transformation is because it wakes you up. It forces you to see yourself honestly. It removes the noise, breaks the illusion of control. It takes away your plan B, so you finally turn to the one who should have been plan A all along. And when you do that, when you surrender, when you stop pretending you've got it all figured out, God begins to work, not around your pain, but through it. He starts to shift things in your heart. He starts to refine the way you see life, the way you treat people, the way you view your worth. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet have gone through the deepest pain. Not because the pain made them strong, but because they didn't run from it. They faced it. They wrestled with it. And in the middle of it, they found out they were more than they ever imagined. Not because of their own power, but because they discovered a God who walks into the fire with you and doesn't leave. A God who doesn't remove the pain instantly, but who promises that it will not be wasted. Every tear, every scar, every sleepless night, it's being used. Not one part of it is random. Faith is not proven when the path is clear and every step feels secure. It's proven in the shadows, when the lights go out and nothing around you makes sense. That's when the real weight of belief shows up. Not just belief in God, but belief in His plan, His timing, His character. It's one thing to say you trust Him when you're standing on stable ground. It's another thing entirely to say it when the foundation is shaking beneath your feet and you can't see 2 steps ahead. That's where faith lies. In the unseen, in the uncertain, in the uncomfortable. Most people want faith that feels good. They want a version of faith that's tied to outcomes. As long as things are going the way they prayed for, they're good. They're praising, they're smiling, they're testifying. But what happens when the answer doesn't come, when the door stays closed? When the healing doesn't happen, the relationship doesn't work, the opportunity falls through. That's the moment when faith becomes real. Not the kind you post about, not the kind you perform, the kind that's raw, quiet, gritty, the kind that says, God, I don't understand this, but I still trust you. A faith isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about surrendering to something greater than your understanding. God never asked you to figure it all out. He asked you to trust Him. And sometimes that means walking forward with no visible sign, no confirmation, no reassurance, just a word He gave you and the conviction to hold on to it. The world teaches you to walk by sight. But faith is the decision to walk even when you can't see what's next. Even when the situation contradicts the promise. Even when everything in you wants to retreat or quit. There are going to be seasons in your life when the only thing you have to stand on is what God said. Not what you feel. Not what others think. Just what He said. And that's the test. Can you trust Him without evidence? Can you keep showing up when nothing seems to be changing? Can you worship while you're waiting, serve while you're struggling, believe while you're breaking? Faith is not passive. It's not weak. It's fierce. It takes courage to believe in the dark what God told you in the light. It takes guts to move forward when fear is screaming louder than truth. Most people want clarity before they commit. But God doesn't operate that way. He doesn't give you the full picture, because if He did, you wouldn't need faith. He gives you just enough to take the next step. And that next step often comes with no guarantee, no roadmap, no comfort. Just obedience. Just trust. The ones who walk by faith understand that their peace isn't found in the path being easy. It's found in knowing who's walking it with them. Because at the end of the day, faith isn't about what you get. It's about who you become in the process of trusting. The world is obsessed with platforms and applause, but God is obsessed with preparation and purpose. Before anyone sees the fruit, there's always a season of roots. Before the lights ever hit your face, God works in the dark. He develops what's real in you before He reveals you to others. That's the thing most people miss. They want the outcome without the obscurity. They want the stage without the stillness. But God doesn't skip steps. He builds character in the dark so that when you're standing in the light, you don't collapse under the weight of it. People love to talk about what they're going to do, where they're going, what they're called to. But talk is cheap when your character hasn't been tested. What you build in private is what holds you in public. And if you don't let God work on your integrity, your patience, your humility behind closed doors, then when you do get what you ask for, it'll be the very thing that breaks you. Gifts can get you in the room, but only character can keep you there. And character isn't built through success. It's built through submission, through obedience when no one's watching, through doing the right thing, even when it's hard and even when it costs you. There are seasons where it feels like nothing is happening, like you're buried, like you're being overlooked, but you're not buried. You're being planted. What's planted doesn't grow overnight. It goes deep before it goes high. You have to be hidden before you can be held up. And in that hidden place, God starts stripping away the things that don't belong: pride, impatience, entitlement. He starts dealing with the inner stuff, the stuff that no one else sees, but that could sabotage your future if left unchecked. The danger of elevation without preparation is that it breeds destruction. That's why God doesn't rush development. He's not interested in promoting you before you're ready. He's interested in making you solid, making you unshakable. And that takes time. That takes pruning. That takes correction. He'll use silence to strengthen your dependence on His voice. He'll use delay to deepen your trust. He'll use obscurity to sharpen your identity. Because when you know who you are when no one's clapping, you won't need applause to feel valuable when people finally do see you. The truth is, the spotlight doesn't change who you are. It reveals it. So if you skip the work done in the dark, the light will expose your weakness. But if you embrace the hidden place, if you let God mold you when no one's watching, then when your moment comes, you won't flinch. You won't fold, because you'll know that you didn't build yourself. God did. And what he builds in secret, no man can tear down. You'll be rooted, anchored, not moved by opinions, not shaken by storm, not broken by pressure. Comfort is deceptive. It whispers to you that you're safe, that you've arrived, that there's no need to stretch any further. But what it doesn't tell you is that comfort can quietly kill calling. It can numb your drive, dull your vision, blind you to the bigger picture God is painting for your life. Growth never takes place in comfort zones. You don't discover purpose in easy places. Purpose is revealed in pursuit, and pursuit always requires movement. Sometimes painful, always uncomfortable, but necessary. The call on your life doesn't adjust itself to your preference. It doesn't shrink to fit your convenience. It demands that you rise, that you let go of familiar things to step into unfamiliar territory. That's where most people hesitate. Because letting go of comfort means stepping into uncertainty. It means surrendering what feels good now for what will be greater later. But there is no calling without cost. There is no destiny without discomfort. The moment you say yes to God's call, you also say yes to the stretching, the wrestling, the pressing. God never calls you to something that keeps you the same. His call is always an invitation to transformation. The thing about transformation is it requires pressure. It requires a breaking. It requires situations that confront your pride, your fear, your need to control. You will be pushed beyond what you thought you could handle. Not because God wants to break you, but because he wants to show you that his strength works best in your weakness. That the version of you who walks in calling can't be built in shallow water. There are some doors you'll never walk through unless you're willing to leave comfort behind. There are some blessings that only come on the other side of obedience. And obedience doesn't always feel good. It's not always logical. Sometimes it means walking away from what's working because God is leading you to what's greater. Sometimes it means staying in a hard place because that's where the refining is happening. In both cases, requires you to trust that God's path is better than your plan. When you settle for comfort, you settle for a version of life that's beneath what God intended for you. You settle for safe instead of stepping into significant. And deep down, most people know they're called to more. They feel the tension between where they are and where they're meant to be. But that gap can only be closed by faith. Not faith in the outcome, faith in the process. Faith that what God has placed in you is worth fighting for, worth being stretched for, worth being uncomfortable for. Because the pain of stretching is temporary, but the pain of settling can last a lifetime. If you let it, comfort will talk you out of the very thing you were born to do. It will convince you to delay, to wait for the perfect moment, to ignore the stirring in your spirit. But calling doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It demands a response right where you are, in the middle of the uncertainty, in the middle of the tension. Obedience to God doesn't always come with clarity, applause, or understanding. Sometimes it looks like walking away from what's familiar, saying no to what's popular, or standing firm in a room full of people who don't see what you see. It's in those moments where obedience becomes less about rules and more about trust. It's saying, God, I may not know what this step leads to, but I trust you more than I trust my own understanding. That kind of obedience can feel lonely. It can feel heavy. But it's also the kind that bursts destiny. There's a difference between believing in God and following God. Belief is a thought. Following is an action. It's one thing to say you have faith. It's another to back it up with steps that cost you something. Obedience often requires you to move without details, to go forward when the situation hasn't changed, to keep building when the results aren't showing. And that kind of obedience offends logic. It will make people question you. It may even make you question yourself. But if you're only obedient when it's convenient, then you're not obedient, you're agreeable. True obedience has to be rooted in relationship. You won't follow someone you don't trust, and you can't trust someone you don't know. That's why time in God's presence matters. That's why intimacy matters. Because in the moments when your feelings contradict your faith, what keeps you anchored is not hype, it's history. It's the memory of what he's already done, the quiet confidence that if he brought you through before, do it again. Obedience requires more than a moment. It requires a mindset. A mindset that says, even when I don't feel it, I will still follow. And the truth is, obedience rarely feels rewarding in the beginning. It usually feels like sacrifice. It feels like walking in the dark with only a whisper to guide you. But it's in that obedience where character is refined, vision is sharpened, and dependency on God is deepened. That's why delayed obedience is still disobedience. When God gives a word, a direction, a conviction, He's not asking for your vote. He's inviting you into alignment. And when you say yes, you're not just agreeing to a task, you're stepping into a transformation. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs in life come not through talent or timing, but through obedience. It's the key that unlocks favor. It's the posture that God honors. It often comes before understanding. We want explanations before we move, but God gives instructions. And if we wait for every question to be answered before we obey, we'll miss what God is trying to do in us and through us. Obedience isn't about knowing the end. It's about trusting the one who does. It's about saying yes when yes is hard and staying when it would be easier to walk away. It's about showing up, not because it feels good, but because you know you were called.